Hello, hope you are doing really well. I know this time of year, a lot going on with the holiday season, of course, but in the year, in the workspace and work environment, usually there's lots of tight timelines and deadlines and projects that you're trying to wrap up or get to a certain level of completion. So, and then, if you got kids, there's all the holiday events that they have through school, whether that's concerts or this or that or whatever. Family get-togethers. I know it's crazy, right? So sometimes this time of year can be very high stress and sometimes anxiety inducing. And I wanted to talk with you or share with you a recent event that actually happened that actually induced a fair amount of anxiety in me personally. And I want to talk to you a little bit about some things that I did and some things that hopefully I can share with you to help you better manage high stress and anxiety and those sorts of things. Um, you know, First, I want you to take a few moments. Let's just do a little bit of breathing. Let's be intentional and focused on breathing for just a few breaths. So I want you to do this at your own pace, but inhale, count to 4, exhale, count to 6. So let's do this for a few breaths. All right. That's tip number one. Anytime you feel a moment of stress or anxiety, first thing that you can do, very easily do, and you can do it at any place that you are at any time, is breathe. I mean, you're breathing anyway, right? So if you can just take a few moments, do some purposeful, intentional breath work where you're in the moment, just focusing on that inhale. And I find that it's really nice to be able to inhale through the nose. There's something about there's a whole chemical reaction, and I'm not going to go into the whole science of it. Look it up. There's a great book. I think it's called Breathe or Breath. I think the guy's name is James Nestor. Great book. Taught me a lot about breathing, and I felt like I knew a decent amount about breathing before I read that. But just breathe in the moment. So, all right, let me share the story. And the other day, actually just a few days ago, we were driving to get some breakfast. And on the drive there, here in town, got a text from our neighbor at our house down in South Carolina. And he said something to the effect of, "Hey, y'all, it's been raining like crazy. Flooding is out of control. There's probably a bunch of water in your garage and lower level at your house in South Carolina." And then he started to send pictures. And we have a security camera, and we were able to turn that on, and we could see all the water in our backyard. And for both, I'll speak for me, but I know for my wife and I, we've talked a little bit about that. Amanda, she had similar sort of feelings and reactions as I did: high anxiety, high stress, for a lot of probably obvious reasons. First of all, there's water coming in or into our backyard for sure. We had no idea if any of the water had found its way into the house. And we couldn't just go over there and find out because, at a minimum, it's, about a 12-hour drive. And even if we got, found a flight, we're still hours and hours and hours away from being able to find out firsthand what was going on. But at the same time, we couldn't do anything about it, Now, I will confess, in the moment, I probably thought some of the worst thoughts you could think in a situation like that. And, we were just there a few days prior, which is some of the irony. And we had been there earlier this past year. We were at the house in the middle of a hurricane. And from what we could see, it seemed as though there was more water then, or just a couple of days ago, than there was during the hurricane. And the hurricane hit at a king tide, the highest of high tides that we're going to get in the area. And it's like, oh my goodness. So, I looked at the radar, and it was a nor'easter that had started, south and I guess in the Caribbean somewhere, and was working its way up. Well, it just dumped. I think I saw some of the reports afterwards. It was over 4 inches of rain in the low country, which it's called the low country for a reason. I mean, it sits at or just slightly above sea level to begin with. And our backyard, it's a marsh, and the water is some distance away from the house, good 50 feet or so. But still, that marsh rises and falls with the tides. So, to see all this water, it was anxiety inducing for certain. So grateful and so fortunate that we have a great relationship with a few folks, Camilla and Murillo. If you're seeing this, thank you so much. We're so grateful for you. They were willing to drive over to the house and go and check and see how things were. And, so we're waiting on this as we're now sitting down at the restaurant to eat some food. And my wife said, for me in the moment were some magic words. And, we reminded each other we couldn't do anything about it. I mean, it's out of our hands. Even if we were there, we weren't going to be able to change the fact that water is going to fill, because just the amount of rain and being low to begin with. So we couldn't do anything about it. So I had to accept that, right? And then she said those magic words, at least that made a difference to me, because I'd been through a lot of mindset and mental performance coaching with Dream Fuel. And, now I do coaching for others as part of the Dream Fuel team. But the thing that she said, best thing that could have happened. Now, I know maybe it seems weird, but in that moment, my mind changed. Okay, I know you're thinking, how in the world could this be the best thing that could have happened? Sometimes, at least for me, I find I just got to trust in a higher power. And, I just had to accept this is the best thing that could have happened for whatever reason. Maybe the reason is obvious, but a lot of times when things happen in our lives, the reason is not always obvious, at least in that moment. This is the way it's supposed to happen. And this is not just to resign life as to say, oh, I'm just going to kind of float on and whatever happens, happens. I mean, sure, you got to do things. You can't play the victim card. And this is not, far from that. But just saying that in my head and hearing Amanda say that out loud, best thing that could have happened, was an instant reframe for me. And so I was able to shift my thinking from anxiety, which when you're in anxiety, cortisol is pumping through your body. There's a good chance that you've got adrenaline pumping through your body. And, in certain situations, those are good for you. But if that continues to build and build and build, you stay in this zone of flight, or maybe you're frozen, and it's just not your best performance zone. I mean, studies have shown your IQ is a good 20 points lower when you're in flight or when you're in a freeze zone. So in my mind, I know this. I do coaching. I've been coached for years. So I knew I had to figure out how to do that reframe. And so hearing best thing that could have happened was that trigger for me to reframe it and start to be more calm and relaxed. And then the words that I started to say were, I'm sure everything's fine. I'm sure the house is dry. I'm sure, there's really no issues to deal with. And so, but that next little bit was a period of uncertainty. And soon Camilla and Murillo arrived at the house and got on the phone with them. And he confirmed, no water in the house, no water in the garage, just some water in the backyard. Really, at that point in time, no damage, some debris, but no damage that he saw. Of course, the water level was still a little bit higher. So that was such a huge sigh of relief. But it was important to have that reframe, because, I mean, what would the point have been to sit there and stress and feel anxious for hours and hours and hours when there's something I can't do anything about it, So Fortunately, I was only kind of stuck in that frame of mind for about 30, maybe 45 minutes before I was able to switch. But I want to remind you all. Maybe that's an extreme example. Maybe you have other things that you're going through, but just remember this phrase. It is wonderful when you can adopt it as sort of a mantra or a positive trigger. Best thing that could have happened. And if you can follow that with some smooth, deep, intentional breathing to bring yourself back to present, it does have a wonderful calming effect. So anyway, that's a short story and a mindset tip that I wanted to share with you all today about some ways that you can help reframe your anxiety. Thought it might be a great message to share with you all, especially considering time of year and all the things that I'm sure you all have going on. Thank you so much for spending time to watch this, and want to remind you, give it a good old thumbs up, and hope you subscribe, and look forward to sharing additional content with you here in the future.